I have the honor of introducing our first speaker, Chip Conley, who is in this room a rock star. So I don't even have to really tell you who he is. But after a distinguished, very successful career as a hotelier with the Joie de Vivre boutique hotels, Chip decided to retire in the new way people retire, the best way, which was to breathe for about a half a second, maybe take a weekend off, and then say, what are we going to do next? And it is our good fortune that Chip decided to take on longevity. One of his first books is called The Making of the Modern Elder, where he recasts what the role of an older person in society is. And it isn't I'm going to sit around and be the wise old sage and tell you young people what to do, gone, but rather to make use of the age diversity in the population to say when older and younger people work together and there's a bi-directional mentoring that occurs with real, sincere relationships and knowledge sharing, then we start to make real headway. So Chip writes a book, The Making of the Modern Elder, which you all should read. But as a hotelier, maybe this is the background. Now I'm just talking to you, Chip. It's like, you know, we have a lot of thinkers and we have builders, and we need both. They're wrapped into Chip Conley. So he thinks about a new stage in life, and then he begins to build solid infrastructure, real infrastructure, to help people make use of these lives better. So the Modern Elder Academy, he starts. He's now launching new sites for that. And today we're so fortunate to have you here to talk about your latest book, which is coming up any second. Okay. Yeah. All right, maybe you'll tell us what it is. Thank you. Thank you, Chip.
There it is.
Thank you. Yeah.
If this is, yeah, it is working. There we go.
There
Hello,
it
everybody.
is.
Thank you, Laura. Such an honor.
Thank you.
So I'm feeling some serious imposter syndrome up here right now. And it's an honor to be the opening speaker here at the Century Summit. I just love that. But I also, so many of you are my mentors and my heroes, and you've been at this a lot longer than I have. I've been at it for a little over a dozen years. I've learned a lot about imposter syndrome. We talk about it at MEA. So imposter syndrome could be defined by the idea that I don't know what I'm doing. It's only a matter of time until everyone figures it out. So have you ever felt imposter syndrome in some part of your life? Yes. It's natural, it happens. But I'm going to take a different perspective with my talk up here today. It's not going to be imposter syndrome. It's going to be growth mindset in honor of Carol Dweck here at Stanford. And that's an alternative approach, which would say, I don't know what I'm doing ... yet. It's only a matter of time till I figure it out. And so I'm going to talk over the next 20 minutes or so about what I've been figuring out around the topic of redefining community and investing in community in an era of longer life. So a few years ago, someone said something to me, and I'm going to quote him. He said, "Was I well loved, and did I love well?" And the person who said that to me was Frank Ossieseski, who's the founding director of the San Francisco Zen Center, or Zen Hospice. He's sat at the bedside of over 1,000 people as they were passing. And he said these two questions, they're linked together. Did I love well and was I well loved is what's rolling around a person's mind at the end of their life. And so it got me curious, got me wondering about 6 years ago when Frank was our first guest faculty member at MEA at our Baja campus. I started wondering, like, okay, what if I actually focused on living a good life, a life that's focused on loving well and being well loved? And so I started talking about this topic, which it's not my language, but I'm definitely helping to popularize it a little bit, is social wellness. the idea of social wellness as opposed to personal wellness, because we have a tendency to think of wellness as a personal endeavor, and not necessarily something we experience together. And no, for those of you who ride your Peloton bike at home, that is not a form of social wellness. Illness starts with the letter I, and wellness starts with the letters we. What if we rethought wellness as being a shared responsibility, as something we do together, so that we're not as fixated on, as I am, how many steps did I walk today, or how many calories did I consume, but instead, how many sunsets have I experienced with my spouse in the last month? How many times did I feel goosebumps when I was having a deep conversation with my best friend? Or how many new friends am I going to meet at the Century Summit? So I'm going to do a little exercise with you here today, because like, guess what? MEA is a midlife wisdom school. We do workshops and things like that. So I'm going to do workshop with you for 2 or 3 minutes. And I hope the Century Summit people will appreciate this, because it's going to allow you to get to know each other. What I want you to do is to turn someone to someone you don't know nearby you. So definitely someone you don't know. And if you know everybody at your table, then may have to walk over to someone else's table. And you're going to introduce yourself in the following way. Marina knows what I'm talking about. Many of you are MEAers and you know what I'm talking about. You're going to say, my name is Chip, although you'll say your name. My name is Chip. And if you really knew me, you'd know, fill in the blank. Now, in terms of what you fill in the blank with, it could be like, why are you here at the Century Summit? That's safe. But it could go, you could go unsafe and do something that's like something that, you normally wouldn't talk about. So you're going to have just the 2 of you. And if there's 3 of you, that's fine, but we've only got 2 or 3 minutes for this. So you're going to say your name. My name is Chip, or my name is Martha. Since Martha's getting a lot of attention this morning, we know how much she likes that. My name is Martha, and if you really knew me, you'd know I don't like attention. So I love you, Martha. So you got 2 or 3 minutes to do this. Go. Thank you for participating in this little dose of social wellness. All right. Of course. Yes, you can do more of that on breaks, at lunchtime. By the way, friendship is a practice. Building friendships is a practice. It's a practice that we can actually build on and start focusing on again after we've had our craziness of midlife, and in the midst of midlife also. We all know the research from Bob Waldinger at Harvard and Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, and the folks up in Marin at the Buck Institute, and my good friend Dan Buettner and his colleagues at Blue Zones. These esteemed folks all say the same thing. The number one variable for living a longer, healthier, happier life is how socially connected we feel. And yet we have an epidemic of loneliness and polarization. So what are we going to do about that? Friends aren't just a nice to have. They are a need to have. They're the comfy furniture, especially on a rainy day. They're not the wallpaper of our life. They're what inhabits our life. Unfortunately, we don't think of it this way. And so when a friend moves out of town, it's almost like the furniture has been just removed from your living room. And often we don't replace it with new furniture. And when we get so busy in our lives, we have to put our furniture in storage. And then we forget that there's some furniture in storage and we've got an empty living room. So what we need to really focus on is friendship as a practice and as something that we actually are constantly investing in. We have property and liability insurance for our home, but do we have emotional insurance for our own personal rainy days? This is much more important as we age. For the past 6 years, I've had the honor of being a witness to an experiment in social wellness with the 4,000 alums from 44 countries. Some of them are in the room. Actually, I was shocked at how many MEA alums are in this room. A good number of you. So thank you. Thanks for being here. who've experienced MEA, which is the world's first midlife wisdom school. With an average age of 54, these midlifers have made the pilgrimage to come and experience their midlife atrium. Thank you to Mary Catherine Bateson, the late Mary Catherine Bateson, for that beautiful phrase, the midlife atrium, where they have reflection space and the opportunity to imagine, how do you want to live the second half of your adult life? Because actually, if you're 54 years old and you think you're going to live till 90, which is the average age that our alums think that they're going to live till, you're exactly halfway through your adult life if you consider adulthood from 18 till you die. 54 is exactly halfway between 18 and 90. We don't think of life that way. We do not have longevity literacy. Although, yes, TIAA is helping with that in a big way. So MEA is dedicated to providing a real world laboratory for amplifying Yale's Becca Levy's groundbreaking research that has shown that when people shift their mindset on aging from a negative to a positive, they gain 7.5 years of additional life, which is more additional life than if they stopped smoking at 50, started exercising at 50. But where are the PSAs, the public service announcements, for that pro-aging message that Becca is putting out there, that Laura is putting out there, that Mark is putting out there, that so many of you are putting out there, that Ken's putting out there? We have a lot of PSAs for stopping smoking and starting exercising. Not a whole lot of pro-aging PSAs. So with a diverse cohort of elementary school teachers and software engineers and physical therapists and investment bankers, we've learned that wisdom is not taught, it's shared. We've learned that actually people are so thirsty for community that we have now 26 regional chapters around the world, primarily because our alums said, we want this. We want to be able to do service projects in our neighborhoods. We want affinity groups based upon interests. UC Berkeley's Dr. Dacher Keltner, who I know many of you know, the founder of the Greater Good Science Center, teaches at MEA once a year, partly because he lives in Pescadero, right near us, within walking distance. When the world's leading expert on awe lives in your neighborhood, you know you're in the right place. So he helped us to see why there's a desire for a growing sense of community. As many of you know, he authored a book earlier this year called Awe that focused on the 8 common pathways globally for experiencing awe. And I think Dacher and all of us would have expected number 1. What do you think would be number 1 on that list? Nature. Yes. Everybody thought nature would be number 1 on the list. It was number 3 on the list. Number 1 on the list for the most common ways people feel awe, number 1 and number 2 were both about community. What a surprise. Number 1 on the list was moral beauty. Witnessing courage, kindness, and the best humanity has to offer. Number 2 on the list was collective effervescence. When your sense of ego separation dissolves and your sense of communal joy grows. So number 1 and number 2 on the list for experiencing awe are pro-social. They're not outside of our relationships. They are part of our relationships. So Dacher helped us to see at MEA that, we're creating a habitat for creating this kind of community-centric form of awe. So what do we do with this knowledge? That community can be central to creating an awe-inspiring life. MEA is trying to be a catalyst for 2 disruptive big ideas that we hope will be adopted by the mainstream. The first one is, how do we scale the great work that's being done by Stanford's Distinguished Careers Institute, Harvard's Advanced Leadership Initiative, and all of the other Nextel collaboratives. Bonnie, thank you for your help with the Nextel collaborative programs at universities around the world. These midlife transition schools are making a big difference. Learning with others in midlife is a new way for people to actually feel a deeper sense of community. It certainly worked as adolescents. So why wouldn't it work during midolescence? A word that Ken coined 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 28 years ago, late 90s, whatever. We go through so many hormonal, physical, emotional, and identity transitions during adolescence, and we do the same in midolescence. But in adolescence, we have all kinds of social support and schools and tools to get us through. Where are the schools, the tools, and community support in midolescence, in midlife? We just don't have them. So David Brooks wrote a recent piece in the Atlantic about midlife transition programs called The New Old Age. And Clay Christensen, the guy who coined the term disruptive innovation, said many years ago that in the next 10 to 15 years, half of the colleges and universities in the US will be closing for a variety of reasons. So there's an interesting opportunity ahead. How can we create midlife gap year academies dedicated to helping people reimagine and repurpose themselves? How do we repurpose colleges and universities that may be closing? And how do we finance all of this? All good questions. I co-wrote a white paper 3 years ago entitled The Emergence of Long Life Learning. Not lifelong learning, but long life learning, that outlines some of the ideas that could actually lead to an initiative that would allow Stanford DCI and other programs like it to scale in much larger ways than they currently do. MEA has enough confidence in long life learning that we're opening our second campus, a 2,600 acre regenerative horse ranch outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, with double the capacity of our first campus. We believe that community is created when we offer the crucible for life-changing conversations. All right, the second disruptive idea that I'd like to introduce that I think is needed in the mainstream is the idea of an alternative approach to retirement communities. Because many boomers and Gen Xers don't really want to live where their parents have lived. Many of us want to age at home, or many of us want to age in community, but a community with not just people our same age. And we learned this from our alums, when our alums actually came to us a few years ago and said, will you create some intergenerational regenerative communities? Communities built upon regenerative lifestyle and learning principles, not retirement principles, but more regenerative principles. And so we have in 2 months, our first regenerative community opening, 26 homes in Baja around a regenerative farm, all very affordable. And we're going to be doing a lot of those in the Santa Fe, New Mexico area. So, and I think the idea of regenerative communities is going to become, something that is going to be appreciated more and more. One of my favorite parts of the idea of a regenerative community is the idea of modernizing the Golden Girls. Now, remember the Golden Girls? 4 divorcees in their 50s, no less, who are later in life, which looked a lot different 40 years ago than it does today, who were having a lot of joy by living together. They were having social wellness. So with women representing 70% of those over 65 who are living alone, why not create homes that are dedicated to co-housing and co-living, not just of women, but anybody? So that's what we're doing. Communal living is a great way to reduce the societal costs of caregiving. Long-term care is financially out of reach to 90% of older Americans. And we all know about the challenging supply and demand of caregiving. The fact that there just aren't enough caregivers to address the current needs, but especially the future needs of not just older people, but disabled people. So MEA believes that regenerative communities with affordable co-housing and co-living options will possibly disrupt the senior housing industry. So isn't it ironic that in an era in which we're awash in communication devices and all forms of media, that we're feeling more disconnected than ever? What we call an online community is just really often a networked individualism. What we want is very simple. We want to actually have real conversations, not small talk. We want big talk, preferably in person when we can. And we want to feel that deep sense of community. We want our mirror neurons to dance together. You don't have to join MEA to experience this. Go create a book or a film club. I love film clubs. Like, book clubs are great, but film club is even better for me. Go join a pickleball community. Dedicate yourself to a meaningful project in your neighborhood. Find a younger person to mentor. Or go to your hometown and connect with people that you haven't seen in decades. I did that last weekend, not this last weekend, the weekend before, in Long Beach, California, and wow, it brought a lot of joy to me. As we get older, we have time affluence. Time affluence. What are we going to use that extra time for? And we might as well use it connecting with others. Life is meant to be shared. You don't have to go through the transitions of midlife or later life alone. In the middle of last century, Albert Schweitzer wrote, in everyone's life, at some time, our inner fire goes out. It is then burst into flame by an encounter with another human being. We should all be thankful for those people who rekindle the inner spirit. I hope that you'll have your spirit rekindled here at the Century Summit. As I get to my wrap point, because I see that it's time, Marjorie Williams Blanco's classic children's book, The Velveteen Rabbit, has some wisdom for us. She offers the insight that we should maybe plaster on our bathroom mirror. She writes, generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off. Who knew a kid's book could offer this kind of wisdom about the upside of aging? I'll finish my talk with another passage from her book. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often, or that's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. Here's to all of you who truly do understand. Let's get real together. Thank you to Ken and Laura and Martha and Karen for creating another enjoyable, insightful, and real Century Summit. Feel free to reach out to me at chip@chipconley.com. That's my email address, chip@chipconley.com. I will be here for a little while this morning. I have stage 3 prostate cancer, so I am heading back, and I'm on treatment right now, and I'm going back up for treatment at UCSF in about 45 minutes. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's an honor to be here, and let's be real.